What's up guys, welcome back to another Julian Aquatics video. Today we'll be aquascaping the Microvue Cube 10 Nano Aquarium kit that I unboxed in the previous video. We'll be using Christmas moss, dwarf hairgrass, this driftwood attached to slate, some white sand, and Shrimp King active soil. I'll be basically creating a small little bonsai island with the driftwood and moss and using dwarf hairgrass as the foreground plant. I'll be using cotton thread to attach the moss to the driftwood, and that'll hopefully hold it in place. Christmas moss grows a little bushier than Java moss, so things should escape nicely once I do trims. This took a long time, so cue the time lapse. The placement of the mosses is very important with smaller pieces of driftwood, especially if you're trying to create a certain look in your aquarium. And in this case, I chose this piece of driftwood because it kind of looks like a small miniature bonsai. So I want to kind of preserve that look and place the moss in places where I think it'll grow the appropriate size and I could maintain and trim it and still keep the bonsai tree look going. So I want very defined branches, and that's what I did in this setup here. Overall, attaching the moss took about 30 minutes, and as you can see, it's attached to the piece of driftwood. What this project entails is a modular design that I've been working on with a couple other aquariums, and it's helped me in practicing aquascaping and kind of just growing my own plants. I'm using this little dish that's meant for plants, like terrestrial plants, so you put it underneath the pot of plants, and it holds water so it doesn't go everywhere. You can find them at like a local hardware store for a couple cents to $1 depending on the size. I'm actually using Shrimp King soil, active soil, for the substrate, and that's gonna go in this dish along with the bonsai tree and some dwarf hairgrass that I have in the two little dishes to the right of the tree. The idea with using the dish to hold the active soil is that once I upgrade the Inhabitants of this aquarium, I could just pull things out without having to restart, and by the time I do that, hopefully I'll have a nice carpet of dwarf hairgrass and the moss tree will look really cool, so I'll be able to plop that in a different aquarium without having to do much planting. And it also kind of keeps the soil all in one place. I'm planning on using white sand around the dish, so it'll kind of really define the island sort of and keep everything maintained so it's easier to keep. It's actually really difficult to pour the substrate in there while everything's in the aquarium, so depending on the size of aquarium you have, if you're doing this, it might be easier, might be harder, but give it a shot if you want to have a modular aquascape that you can move around. So for this aquascape, I'm actually using plants that I've grown myself, and what I basically do is get these little serving dishes, add some substrate, add a couple plants in there, and just let them grow. And by the time they're ready to be used, they've developed a really strong root structure. You can split them apart, you can drop them into an aquarium and basically jumpstart an aquascape without having to do much work. So for the 1 or 2 aquascapes that I do throughout the year, this really helps me out because I have a continuous cycle of plants that would otherwise be very expensive for me to constantly buy every time I wanted to do an aquascape. And for the most part, the dishes are recyclable, so you can just keep the cycle going, and as long as you have plants to start off with, it's a great way to continue your practice. These are dwarf hairgrass that have been growing in an aquarium for about 3 months now, and no nutrients, no CO2, so they're a little straggly, but they work for what I'm doing here. And the idea is that I want to see how fast some of these plants will root and spread in this small of an aquarium, and to kind of see how strong the light is and whether or not it can maintain these plants with minimal effort. And as you can see in this one, there wasn't that many offshoots going, but the idea is to just get them in the aquarium and hope they'll do their work without much effort. It's a messy project, but once you get it done, you'll be satisfied with the work. I'll probably go back, clean these out a bit, add some more substrate, and replant them and start the cycle again. I'll need to cap these so that things aren't going everywhere. And it's virtually impossible to do it while the dish is in the aquarium, so you're gonna have to take it out and kind of maneuver your way back into the aquarium without causing a mess. Here I'm pressing the plants into the substrate and kind of making sure that they're really anchored in so that we don't have any floaters. Add substrate where it's needed. If I see a root, I'll try to push it in. That way the root has somewhere to go as opposed to just randomly floating. Adding sand around the planter was kind of difficult, especially with this small of an aquarium, but with a bigger aquarium it's fairly easy, so keep that in mind. I use a siphoning system to fill the aquarium. I also use some old filter media and wring it out in the new water to kickstart the cycle. I ran this filter on it for about a week, then switched over to a more established sponge filter. The filter that came with the kit is definitely too powerful for this small of an aquarium, so keep that in mind. And you'll see the dirty aquarium water going in a few seconds. The next video will actually be a more updated version of this setup. So after approximately 2 weeks, I decided to add the Taiwan bees that I got from Rob from Flip Aquatics while I was at the Aquatic Experience in Chicago. I removed the original filter that came with this aquarium because it was way too much flow for the shrimp and for what I actually wanted in the aquarium. I also added narrow leaf Java fern to the back of the aquarium and a couple moss ledges to give the shrimp a more grazing area. And after the first 2 weeks, I actually saw some new growth from the dwarf hairgrass, which was a bonus. Unfortunately, I didn't get any front or side shots of the entire aquascape before uploading this video, so I didn't get any of the early grow out shots that I wanted to. So enjoy a few glamour shots of the shrimp and the driftwood and the plants. The next video I upload will be a complete update on it. I think it's been about 2 months now since it's been set up, and there has been substantial growth that looks awesome. So thanks for watching. Subscribe, hit the bell icon, and tune in next time. Thank you.